All right, guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at one of the new Seiko tunas, the S23633. I've owned the watch now for about 2.5 months, and since I've owned it, it's easily my most worn watch. So I just wanted to share some thoughts on the watch so far, but before we get to the watch, we're going to take a little excursion today. So what are we doing? Well, we are going to a spot that I've been wanting to take you guys to for a long time. About the halfway point between where I live and Niagara Falls is a shipwreck. You can see it from the highway, and I've driven by it a million different times. I've been meaning to forever to get my kayak out and do a little paddle around the shipwreck and take a closer look. So today that's what's on the agenda. I have the kayak in the back of the truck. I brought my fishing rod too, so I might make a couple of casts, see if anything's biting. So going on a little adventure, then we'll take a look at the tuna. La Grande Hermine. I believe that means the big weasel. Here's the ship. Here we go. The water is a little bit cold. That's all right. See if I can get on this thing without getting totally soaked. Gorgeous out today. So, bit of a backstory on the boat, and this is kind of new to me actually. I just started looking into it a few weeks ago, but this boat was owned by a gentleman that was trying to convert it into a restaurant slash casino and operated out of the Niagara Falls area. This was back in the early 90s. He passed away before he got the proper permitting and that sort of thing, and it's been sitting ever since 1991. A few years ago, somebody committed arson and burnt the boat. So this is the condition it's in now because of that. So it's quite a few decades it's been sitting here. It's become a local landmark. Some people call it the pirate ship or the ghost ship, but it's really cool to finally get out and be able to see it up close in person. One thing I'm noticing is inside here, this is quite the sanctuary for birds. It's quite loud, and I'm not sure if the camera will pick up on it or not, but lots of wildlife living in there. All right, so I think what we're gonna do is maybe head out towards the breakwall there, which is awesome, by the way. That's really calm water here because of that, but I think we'll head over that way and see if we can get the fishing line in the water, make a couple of casts and see if anything's biting. Not the best time of the day probably for it, but we'll give it a try. I don't know what the heck happened there, but first cast and my rod snapped right in half. It's an old rod and not a particularly expensive one either, but I took the tip off. We're not going to be able to cast probably very far, but we'll still give it a whirl here. All right, let's see how far we can get this line out. Not very far at all. We'll call that one a practice run with the short rod here. Try that again. All right, guys, I am calling it quits on the fishing. I think we were doomed from the get-go when my rod snapped in half. So who needs a fish anyways when we got a tuna, you know? Let's get out of here. All right, so back home now. Short a fishing rod, but still had a lot of fun. Just dawned on me, actually, Father's Day is coming up, so I might have to start dropping hints to the kids that Dad needs a new rod. So Let's get to the tuna here, though. And I believe since I've owned the watch, it's gotten at least some wrist time every single day. I'll say, first of all, during this whole work from home thing, I've grown to really appreciate a watch with a day date, especially a quartz. When we started working from home, I had just got my Grand Seiko, and at the time it was my daily wear. But with only the date, there was more than a couple of times where a reminder of the day would have been handy. It's nice that you can set a watch like this and you just don't have to touch it other than maybe changing the date once a month. Accuracy is plus or minus 15 seconds per month with the movement, the 7C46, and that's plenty accurate for me. I haven't tested the accuracy over a long period like that, but seems to be keeping good time, and I'm sure it's within spec. The other great thing about a robust quartz watch like this is you just don't have to be concerned about being a little rough with it. I've always got a project on the go, and this can definitely handle a bump or knock. It should be said, though, that it will take a few knocks. Some watches might not, just due to the way it stands so tall off of the wrist. The watch uses Seiko's super hard coating on the steel. There's two times that I had a good little impact with this, and I was sure there would be a scratch or scuff, but not at all. It stood up really well so far. I think the only mark, and you probably won't even be able to see it in the viewfinder here, is there is a couple of small hairline scratches on the clasp. Now, I plan to play around with some different straps and maybe even bracelets too, but so far it's been on the stock bracelet since I've owned the watch. It's not the best bracelet, but I really like it. I would have loved to have seen Seiko maybe upgrade the clasp, but if you need that on the fly adjustment, it does work pretty good. One thing with this clasp, though, is it tends to extend almost every time I put on the watch. It extends by pushing on the fold over part of the clasp here, and I'll just slide it back in, and it easily gets bumped enough to open up a little. It's not a big deal, but after you pinch your wrist a couple of times pushing it back in, you quickly learn to be a little more careful when doing it. A cool thing with this watch that you don't see very often is the sapphire crystal. It's actually flat on the top and domed on the underside. Even at quite hard angles, it's still really easy to read. And while we're looking at this angle, I'm not sure if you can tell, but the crystal is recessed slightly below the bezel, which will help protect it from taking hits. So something I really appreciate with a watch like this is legibility. That handset just jumps out at you. They are large and in charge, especially the minute hand. Even better, though, is the low light legibility. Just an absolute torch of a watch. Seiko is known for lume, especially with their divers, but this is even a notch up from a lot of them. The bezel action is pretty good. It has a bit of that spongy feel like you'd expect from a Seiko diver, but better. You can tell it's a Seiko, but it's definitely a more refined feel. I'm not sure if Seiko is doing a little better with these when it comes to alignment, but this one's spot on. I may have gotten lucky though. The hour markers, the chaptering, and bezel all line up like they should. Now, I know you hear it all the time when people talk about the tuna models that they wear a lot better than their size suggests, and it is so true. It's mostly due to the short lug to lug. Not only that, but considering the size and weight, it's really a well balanced watch. I expected it to feel a little bit top heavy on wrist, but it feels very comfortable. For me, the appeal starts with the design. I love the look with the shroud. It is such a neat look to me. A bit of an aggressive, tooly design, but that's what's cool about it. I've really connected with the watch and could see maybe adding another tuna to the collection someday. I actually have my eye on a particular one, an older model, but we'll see. So that's gonna be it for today, guys. If you're looking for a little more info on the watch, I've done an overview on it with all the specs and that sort of thing a couple of months back. Link will be in the description below. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. One last look at the Shipwreck before I make the paddle back to shore. Quick look at the Tuna 2 while we're at it.